Coach Eric Khoury. What's going on? How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm good. Have you recovered from Las Vegas yet?
I have, thankfully. That was a long stretch there, but good to be back home, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, no, it was. I'm still trying to catch up on sleep, I swear, but I'm glad to be chatting with you because there's a big announcement that dropped pretty much honestly like immediately after Las Vegas, and that you are now the new head coach of the Raptors 905. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I found out myself right at the tail end of Vegas and was super excited for it, and then got to come home and celebrate with the family.
How did you celebrate exactly?
With two little boys, there's not too much celebrating. So I just had a nice dinner and was playing with the little guys. So nothing too special.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, it's big. That's huge because you are now officially the youngest coach in, the Toronto Raptors. I guess maybe the 905 franchise history as a head coach. I guess that would actually include the Toronto Raptors if you want to add that into the mix as well as a whole. How did that feel when you got announced officially that, you will be the head coach? Like, what was that emotion that ran through your mind?
Yeah, I was very excited. It had been something I've been working towards for a few years now. So it's good to see all that come to fruition. And just when I got the news directly, I started thinking about the opportunity ahead and everything that I'd like to do with the role, and I got really excited about it. So I was really pumped.
Let's get into the nitty gritty a little bit just because I want like the fans and everybody to know, because I mean, I know what you do behind the scenes. You do a lot of analytics. You are like kind of the brains behind the basketball, but just describe exactly what your role was with the Toronto Raptors, with the 905 in the past, and how it kind of led up to this opportunity.
Yeah, so analytics is what I started in way back in the day, almost about 10 years ago now. But for the past 4 or 5 years, it's just been purely a coaching role. So haven't been touching the analytics too much recently. But it's still something that frames the way you see the tactical side of the game. So analytics are really good for analyzing trade-offs. There's lots of different decisions to make as a coach, and
Hmm.
to be able to support on some of those trade-offs from a data-driven perspective can always help. So that's something that's kind of framed my coaching background over the years, but not something I've been doing too much day to day lately. So as an assistant, it was, just like any other assistant doing their role, whether it's player development on the court or ideas off the court, game strategy wise or tactics wise. So that has been my focus. And then, like you said, I spent some time with the Raptors, and with the 905. There's fewer coaches than there are with the Raptors, so you do a little bit more. And then with the Raptors, you find your role and do what you can do best, and execute your role as best as you can. So been able to be with both organizations, and both have their great positives, and you can grow so much as a coach, whether you're with the Raptors or with Raptors 905.
I love that, and I love the fact that like you've kind of found your coaching style throughout the past more recent years, but then in the past you really did start off in analytics, and it kind of like it gets me thinking about the movie Moneyball.
Yeah,
It kind
definitely
of
heard
it
of
gets
that.
me
I haven't
thinking.
seen it yet, but
You
I know I
haven't
gotta
seen
watch.
it?
Nah, I gotta watch it at some point. But no, I definitely heard about it.
Okay, well now I can't spoil it. I thought everybody watched it by now. Come on, coach. It's been out for like I don't even know, like 10 years probably now.
I think at
Um,
this point you can spoil it. And I know the story enough that it shouldn't be too much of an issue.
I know I feel bad because it's such a good
Yeah,
movie still.
yeah,
Okay. Anyways, it's based on analytics, and just like how they built their roster based on the stats. They took the odds and ends bin from players around, I believe it's like the MLB.
yeah.
Anyways, with that being said, I was going to use that reference to ask yourself kind of like what kind of would be going into your coaching decisions. Are you still going to be kind of referring back to your analytics and when it comes to number crunching and stats don't lie? Or will you kind of be using more like eye tests and just personal, like, I don't say gut feelings because that just discredits a lot, but like kind of more like coaching instincts?
Yeah, it's a great question. With the analytics, it gives you a way to frame the game really well. So if you had a question and you want to see historically what's happened, the data can really help to try and decide, okay, what's been the trade-offs? If we take this shot versus this shot, which one are we going to score more points on going forwards? Uh, but if you just go strictly off of that, you're missing a lot of the nuance as well. So I think a
Mm-hmm.
background in analytics really helps in that it gives you a better understanding of what's, to use the common phrase, what's signal and what's noise. And that's where having a coaching background and analytics background, you can kind of blend the both and know when to use the data and when to go away from it. So I don't know if it'll ever be one where I'm purely leaning on one thing as opposed to the other. It's kind of framed my coaching perspective as a whole, and that's kind of how I've grown up as a coach. Is
Mm-hmm.
using all that data to try and better understand the game and what affects winning in today's game, but also what's going to affect winning going forwards. So to have a clear understanding of when I'm using my gut, which a lot of times would be influenced by all the data I've analyzed over the years, versus when I'm actually using raw data.
Mm-hmm.
There won't be that clean of a delineation, put it that way. So I would definitely say I'm not going to be a numbers based coach, like purely using that, because like I said, there's a lot of times where that data could lead you astray. So having experience to know what data is more meaningful and what data can take you on the wrong path is going to be helpful.
So you're not going to be referring solely to plus minus stats, is what I'm hearing.
You're spot on with that one. I certainly will not be.
But all of our viewers
Yeah.
listening or whatever, listeners listening, plus minus is like,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, coach, but it's like one of those cringiest stats just because there's so much variables into it.
For sure.
Anyway, so let's talk about your mentors that kind of like led you to this moment, because I mean, listen, near and dear to both of our hearts, Patrick Mutombo, he's been with the 905. You got some shoes to fill because he finished the 2 regular seasons back to back as number 1, within the conference, and didn't get the playoff result, of course, but still, like it's an incredible feat that what he did. And kind of how did who was the mentors that shaped you? Was it Patrick Mutombo? Was it other people? Was it Nick Nurse?
Oh, Coach Patrick was awesome for me. I got to spend one season working with him in the bubble, but then we also
Yeah.
worked together with the Raptors for a long time. So, but Coach Patrick was so focused on developing not just the players but the staff as well, and it was so beneficial for all his staff members because he did a great job of pushing you out there and making you expand even going past where you thought your limits were and getting you to really grow as a coach, but never making you feel like you were out on a limb either. If there was ever a situation where you might need like an extra hand or need to jump in, he was there for me or for any of the coaches. So he was a great mentor. And it's definitely something I'm going to focus on as a 905 coach, is to bring along all the assistants as well. So that way they feel like they're going as much as they can as well. Cause he did wonders for my career. But before Patrick, got to spend a year with Coach Jama with 905, who is obviously unbelievable. He's like, when you talk about a leader, he's as good a leader as there is out there. And he just seeing his energy, seeing the way he communicates, his charisma, everything. As a coach, you always steal a little bit from every coach. And Coach Jam is probably the coach that's toughest to steal from because his stuff is just like, he's such a superstar. And he'll take as much as you can there, but won't always be easy, that's for sure. But then also throughout my time with the Raptors on the coaching staff, Coach Casey was amazing, Coach Nurse, both their staffs. There's been so many great assistants to work with over the years. And then, like I said, I started in management. So there's a lot of great people in management that I've learned from over the years as well. The organization is just filled with unbelievable role models and mentors. So very fortunate to be in the Raptors organization.
What I find super cool is the fact that like the Toronto Raptors organization as a whole has so many international coaches, like, Trevor Gleeson from Australia, Patrick Mutombo, like himself, like so much different talent from every part of the world. But you are kind of like homegrown.
Yeah.
So what's it kind of like to coach in your backyard?
Oh, it's really cool. I grew up in Toronto. My parents moved here from Egypt in their mid-20s. So it's a little international, a little homegrown.
Okay, we got a little spice.
Yeah, a little bit. So, but growing up, I grew up a huge Toronto Raptors fan. So being able to join the organization and be part of it for almost 10 years now, it's been so awesome. And I still talk with some of my friends who are, all the time talking with my friends who are big time Raptors fans. And it's just so cool to interact. And I remember after we won the championship, we're doing the parade, and I was fortunate enough to be on the buses, and you're looking out and you're just seeing one friend after another because it's in your own city. And I know a lot of the coaches, like you said, who are from other places, they look around and they see all these faces and they're like, wow, like over 1 million people have come out. But as a Toronto born guy, you look around and you're like, oh, hey, I know him from high school. I know him from university. I know him from my basketball league. I know. So it's really fun to see a lot of familiar faces out there.
What has the reaction within your community been when everyone found out the news?
I didn't know I had that many people in my contact book, put it that way. There's one text after another, and I was so grateful for receiving all of them and tried to hit everyone back and say thank you. And it was just so cool to see all the people reaching out.
Oh, that's just all pure love right there. And like
Yeah.
obviously like, there's so much Raptors fans in the city regardless. And so it's just exciting news. It's like, of course. Um, but I am a little bit like, intrigued by the fact that like you are the youngest coach. Like I don't want to out your age, but like
Yeah.
you're definitely on the younger side. And there has been players even this past season that are older than you. Like, how will
Yeah.
you approach that dynamic?
Yeah, the age thing, I think usually people talk about age because it comes with a lack of experience. But I've been fortunate enough to do this for a while now. So I am a bit younger in age, but I still have the experience factor to come with it. So it's not like it's my first year or anything like that with the organization. It's been straight out of school. I joined the organization. So I've been here for a minute. So been able to see everything and learn throughout the years and grow in that sense. But it is exciting, the age part. It means, I mean, you look around the league and there's NBA head coaches that are getting
Mhm.
younger and younger, and look in the NFL and his coaches are getting younger and younger, and it seems to be the trend going forwards. So I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe they're looking more for sometimes older age. You get more rooted in your ways, and younger people are a little more creative, and they haven't really cemented what their plans are yet. So I think that's a benefit for me going forwards.
I was just gonna say there is
Yeah,
and even on a regular job market, they're like you need 3 to 5 years of experience. But how do you get that experience if you're
yeah,
not thrown into the fire? And
yeah,
in your case, like sometimes when you have newer faces and or people that are younger, you have different ideas or more willingness to risk things or something that's like you said, like not set in your ways quite yet. So with that comes flexibility and creativity. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what you bring there. But I do want to ask kind of when was the seed of I want to be a head coach someday planted in your head?
it's a great question. I think a lot of people in when they get into basketball, they kind of see two paths. They either one day want to become a GM or one day want to become a coach. And that's not everybody, but I would say a good chunk of people who join an organization like to follow one of those paths. And I actually started on the management side, doing the analytics, like you said, and I was growing in that area. But every year, it started with working a little bit with the coaching staff. And that was mainly I was a big basketball fan, but it's not like I knew all the tactical details through and through. So I would use the analytics programs to try and pick out all the pick and rolls. And then an assistant coach would say, okay, but can you tell me how they did in the pick and rolls depending on which coverages they were doing? So
Mhm.
coverages, I only know a couple of pick and roll coverages. I'm a basketball fan, but not any sort of coach. So they started teaching me all these different coverages that teams could employ. And
Yep.
I might have thought there was one or two or three, and now all of a sudden there was 8 or 9 or 10, and it's like, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? So I spent more time with the coaching staff, getting into more of the details, and to teach it well enough where I could then go ahead and teach a computer to recognize it. You have to know it inside out. And as I would talk with the coaches, I get further involved in the tactics and say, okay, so if the defense is doing this, shouldn't the offense do that? And we go back and forth. And that part really triggered my tactical, like the tactical side of it. I really loved it. So I started working more and more with the coaching staff every year. And it went from just showing up to a practice or two every couple months to showing up to all the practices to sitting in on coaches' meetings till I eventually joined the coaching staff full time under Coach Casey. And that's when I was really enamored with the coaching side because at first it was just only the tactical side of it. And then you realize the tactics are probably only, I don't know, 20% of it. And the rest is all the team building, the leadership, the culture setting. And it got so interesting to me. Every day I wanted to do more and more of that. So I was fortunate enough to join it full time, joined Coach Casey's staff, and then Coach Nurse took over and joined Coach Nurse's staff. And that was the year we won the championship. And I loved it. And I was still doing some analytics and some coaching, but I thought if I really want to go all the way in on the coaching staff, 905 is the place to go because that's when
Yeah.
you can really grow and develop and really test your coaching acumen. So joined the 905 for a couple of years as an assistant, and as I was doing that, I thought, oh man, I want to take the next step as well. So that's kind of when the idea of joining as a head coach came on, and So I joined 905 for a couple of years, came back to coach nurses staff for a bench role. And then this year, yeah, I'm fortunate enough to be joining the 905 back as in the head coaching seat.
It's just incredible to me. You gave me so many nuggets in that one answer that I just want to like dive into, because I don't think a lot of people realize just like, and I don't want to call it politics, but like the nuances that goes on behind the scenes in the coaching world. Like Coach Casey gave you the opportunity to start joining him in practices. Like that's not a regular thing in other places, like period. And then on top of that, Coach Casey left, and a lot of other new head coaches like Nick Nurse, they could have brought in their own staff. I'm sure he did bring in some of his own staff, but they could have completely wiped the bench, didn't want anything to do with other assistant coaches. So the fact that you kind of stuck around, made yourself valuable to not just one NBA head coach, but two NBA head coaches, was able to go down to the 905, back up to the like thing. All this movement is not common. And so like when I'm listening to your story, I'm like, this guy's like incredible, because it's very tough. That's a tough path. But I would say this, I'm kind of curious, because I'm wondering now, do you feel any pressure entering this season, like knowing that the Raptors do see the 905 as a complete extension of themselves?
For sure. Going back to the previous part, I would say my advice for anyone who's trying to follow a similar path or similar role is you're going to work with a lot of people. And in the NBA especially, and in sports in general, you spend as much time, if not more, with your coworkers than you do with your family. So you can be as great as you can be at your job, but if you're not very pleasant to be around, you won't be around for very long, put it that way. So I think it's really important, like you said, sticking around from one coach to another, going to 905, coming back and working with multiple coaches with 905. Just be respectful, be a pleasant person to be around, work your butt off, don't get me wrong, and bring something that at the end of the day, there's so many people who want to get into a similar field. So we all want to grow and be generalists and do as much as we can, but you need to have a specialty, something you can hang your hat on and say, this is what I can contribute to the team that isn't easily replaceable. So it's very important to be focused on something and show why you can contribute and show why you deserve to stick around. But in terms of pressure, yeah, definitely. I mean, the pedigree of 905 head coaches so far, all of them have been great, and they're doing great things now. So you don't want to be the one to drop the baton, put it that way. You want to keep it going. So I'm really excited for it, but pressure is a privilege at the end of the day. You want to be in a position where there is some pressure. So I'm excited for it. And I know it's a great opportunity to contribute to both the Raptors organization and the 905 organization. At the end of the day, you're trying to help develop some of the young guys with 905 to a point where they can contribute to winning as Toronto Raptors. And if you do that, you had a successful tenure as a 905 head coach. And people always talk about development versus winning, but the G League, it makes it easy. If you don't develop, you won't win at the end of the day, because the players are young. And if they're not getting better, if they're the same quality player in October that they are in April, you don't stand a chance of winning in April. So you have to focus on the development. If it doesn't mean you start out the gate 10-0, that's fine. Like, it's more important that you're peaking in April and winning a championship in April. So it's very excited for that part of it.
Well, I just recall this past Raptors 905 season, it was a rocky start. And then, like, of course, the team got hit with, like, health and safety protocols around December, around the showcase time. So they didn't even go to the showcase. And then, sure enough, they finished the regular season #1 in the G League.
Exactly.
But I kind of want to touch back really quick on what you said before, because you mentioned that you had to let a computer know how to do coverages on a pick and roll, like, defense. So were you coding?
Oh, big time.
Oh, my goodness. He codes, everybody. He codes.
Oh, man. So I got into it straight out of my master's. In my master's, I did a little bit of coding, but not a ton. But when I was meeting with the company that was doing the analytics for the Raptors at the time, before they got hired on full time, I definitely made it sound like I was a better coder than I was. And I'm sure than you. They're pretty smart people.
You're a better coder than me.
So I picked it up a lot in my first few months. But yeah, by the end of it, I've probably written like thousands and thousands of lines of code to suss out, like you said, pick and rolls and pick and roll coverages and all the different things that we put into it. So there's sometimes I look back on it because I still have it on the computer and I'm like, what is this spaghetti code over here? It gets a little confusing. They might ask me, hey, what was this line of code all about? And I look back like, oh geez, Keith, I don't know if I can help you. Keith's the VP of strategy and research or something with the Raptors, but he's kind of heads the analytics department and then some as well. So when he asks a question because they're trying to touch up some code, it's like, Keith, man, that might be 8, 9 years ago at this point, and I don't really know what's going on over there. But yeah, so definitely was a lot of code writing in the past.
That's crazy. So I think it's valuable to know that also, because when people think about how can they get involved with basketball, I don't think people think, oh, I could be a coder and also someday be an NBA, the G League head coach, or, who knows in the future. Also, kind of going back to what you said about feeling the pressure. I mean, I know the Raptors organization, they wouldn't put you in a position to fail. Like they chose you because they definitely see you as the next person that could carry the baton, right? You're more than capable of it. Yeah. I do want to ask, before we let you go, because this time has been flying by already. Tell us about who you are off the court. We want to know the tea. We want to know the good stuff. Who are you off the court?
Oh man, I'm pretty low key. So it's always funny. People talked about when I was switching from the Raptors after the championship to the 905. I'm like, how are you going to survive after chartered planes and staying in 5-star hotels to taking buses and staying at whatever hotel you can find? It's easy. I get to the hotel room. I'm not doing too much. I'll hang out, read a book, watch some sports. I love pretty much any sport there is. When I got free time, I'm out playing tennis or playing soccer, playing football with friends. And then now with kids and stuff, just as much family time as I can get, I'm going to take on with my wife and my 2 boys. So nothing too much fun. Whenever I can be active, I think like sports, and not necessarily basketball, any sport is just such a good release. Keeps the mind flowing freely. So I like to be active when I can, spend as much time outdoors as possible. And then, of course, just as much time with my boys and my wife as I can.
Okay. So just in the sake of getting to know you better for our fans, give us your go-to NFL team.
Go-to NFL team. So I kind of married into this one because my father-in-law and brother-in-law are over the top Los Angeles Rams fans. Like they were
good.
LA Rams fans from when they were originally in LA before St. Louis kind of thing. So I've married into that one. They actually flew up to the Super Bowl last year, everything. They went all out. So they're big time. So it would be pretty tough to choose any other team at this point. So definitely a Rams fan. And we get together on Sundays to watch the games. It's super fun.
Okay. That's good to know. I'm guessing you're also a Blue Jays fan. You have to be from Toronto.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Of course.
So
yeah. Blue Jays fan, Leafs fan. Yeah. TFC fan, Argos fan, all of them.
Yeah. I just list them all off. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure I missed one, but Toronto Rock as well.
Toronto Rock. Yeah. Well, and hopefully maybe a future WNBA franchise. We'll see.
Please. That'd be awesome.
Trust me. I know. I've had like a whole debate in my head. I'm like, can I be a broadcaster if a WNBA franchise comes, or will I have to be a part of the organization somehow? But that's a whole different conversation. But I did want to kind of like ask you, what books do you read exactly? Like, because you said books. Listen, Mutombo paints, and we know he's a great artist. He's been putting his stuff in museums, but I want to know what your vice is. Like, what's the go-to hobby?
Oh, I'm all nonfiction. So
nonfiction.
I can't remember the last fiction book I've read. But anything that's interesting, I find interesting, I'll pick up and I'll read. So right now I've got one called the MVP Machine on my bedside over there. It's a pretty cool one it's all about baseball player development. So see if I can pick out anything of that basketball related, but it's really cool. It's all about nonconformists and how they're changing the field. And I like to think someone with an engineering background is a bit of a nonconformist when it comes to the NBA. So at least it's somewhat applicable. But yeah, I'll pick up any topic really, and just kind of whatever dives in and catches my interest. So I'll stick around with, that's for sure.
That's so dope. So that's so funny. Like even on your off time, you're still learning and growing. And
there's no off time. You got to keep getting better every day.
Listen, that's a great mindset to have. And I'm pretty sure Mutombo said something along the same lines there as well. He's like, off time. I heard about that.
That sounds like Coach Patrick for sure.
It's true though. There's like, I don't know if I call it any more the work-life balance and more like a work-life style. Like,
it's a good way of putting it.
Exactly. but I don't want to take too much of your time. I appreciate all your thoughts. Like, I guess the last thing I would want to leave our viewers with is just how would you describe your leadership style?
Yeah, I think it's very collaborative. Not a huge believer in having a whole bunch of rules and saying, okay, this is exactly how we're going to do everything and let's execute it this way. Because especially in the G League, the majority of players, their goal is to grow and get called up to an NBA team. And so I want to be, my leadership style, my coaching style is more building habits and building problem solvers to the point that when they do eventually get their call up, it's pretty rare you get called up and you're straight into the starting lineup or even a rotation player. So you get called up to be as a 15th man or 14th man initially, and you have to work your way up. So it's really important to develop the habits early and grow together as a team. And that way, when you do get your call up, you're in a good spot where you're going to stay on and you're going to be a player that coaches want to have around, and you're good for the team and you're good for the locker room and good for film sessions. And slowly you'll inch your way up from someone who's maybe closer to the end of the bench to a rotation player and a rotation player to a starter and climb that ladder. So I'm a big believer in, instead of trying to build players to be rule followers, to build players to be problem solvers, because the best players are all problem solvers. They're on the court and they don't need to look over at the bench every 2 seconds to say, what should I do right now? They can just read the game in real time and do what's best to help the team win. So that's my coaching style. That's my coaching philosophy. And we'll get to execute it this year. I'm very excited for it.
Let's go. Let's go. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It was great having a conversation.
Absolutely.